How many of you woke up today morning and decided that you're going to learn something new today? Raise your right hand, please. Raise your right hand if you decided to learn something new. No, sir, your other right hand. This other. That's quite a few. Okay, that's a lot. I'm guessing the rest of you came here for the coffee. It's good coffee, so I don't blame you. But where are my manners? Let me introduce myself. My name is Vinay Menon. I am a stand-up comedian, and I teach English to engineering students. So most of you might complain about having a poorly paying job. I have two. I used to be a software engineer, but then I recovered. Thank you. That's just the natural progression, right? That's like an evolution of an Indian right now. Like you have that chart with the evolutionary stages of an Indian. It'll be like Australopithecus, Homo erectus, software engineer, Homo sapiens. But yeah, the question which I asked you is what I usually ask my students as well. When I go to a class, on an average, I have a class strength of around 60. When I ask this question, how many of you woke up today to learn something new? The maximum I've gotten so far is 5. 5 students who raised their hands and in all naive optimism said, I'm here to learn something new. Now we are doing something really wrong, aren't we? If people who are coming to an institution of learning treat learning as a sort of foreign concept, which got me to ask this one question. What is the point of the education system in India? It's something which I've been asking all throughout, and now that I am part of this, I ask this once again. Now, you could be pragmatic, and you could give the most boring response and say that it's to get a job. I'm getting educated so I can get a job. Oh, that's great. What happens if you get a job? Oh, if I get a job, I'll have financial security, I'll get a good spouse, I'll have genetically perfect children, I'll put them into the education system, and the process continues. So, in short, the education system is to propagate our species. Not very attractive when I say it like that, is it? But then this is another word which I keep hearing when people speak of education. Holistic. I keep seeing that in brochures for schools and colleges. Education should be holistic. Well, at least those schools and colleges which have a thesaurus use this word. But then, what else is education good for? And I got my answer. A lot of people say this. It is to create the best minds in their respective fields. And I think that's not far from the truth. I had an opportunity to speak to Dr. Jhansi James. She's the former Vice Chancellor of Mahatma Gandhi University. She said, and I quote, "The best in India will always be the best in the world when it comes to education." Now that's something we can be really proud about. This means students, teachers, educators, facilitators, you name it. But then, think about it. The best in India, the people who achieve things, you have Nobel laureates, you have athletes, even in education, they are the best despite the education system and not because of it. So that's why I come back to the original question. Thank you. I come back to the original question. What is the point of the education system in India? So I don't know the answer to this question. It has bugged me for a while. But then I can give you, many of you might have asked the same question as well. So I can give you a fresh perspective, which is why I named this talk 3 myths of the Indian education system. Why 3? Because it felt like an auspicious number. But these 3 myths are there so that I can change your perspective on a few things. And maybe together we can all figure out what is the point of the education system in India. So to understand the Indian education system, we must go way back to its origins, way back to the early 1800s, back in England, when the Industrial Revolution was in full swing, and the East India Company had just started their business in India. Now, they were having the same problem a lot of married couples do, communication. So at that point, they did not know how to communicate with the Indians, because our culture is so vast, and there are so many languages and so many customs. So they turned to this one man, Thomas Babington Macaulay. Now Macaulay, they told him to go to India, figure out what's going on there, and to create an education system so we can teach the Indians. Now he was not too happy to come to India. Because back then they did not have airlines or attractive stewardesses. In fact, I believe this photo was taken as Macaulay was being told he had to go to India. Does not look happy, does he? So Macaulay did come to India, and he wrote, after that he went and he circulated a memorandum, which was called the Minute to Indian Education. And in it, he wrote, and I quote, "It is, I believe, no exaggeration to say that all the historical information which has been collected from all the books written in the Sanskrit language is less valuable than the most paltry abridgments found in preparatory schools in England." Slight superiority complex, in case you didn't notice. It's very subtle. You have to look out for it. So, but then there was a lot of debate about this. Few people opposed this view, but then in the end, Macaulay got his way, and we had the English Education Act of 1835. This was implemented primarily so that we can bridge the gap between the British and the Indians. Education was meant to be in English, well, primary education, and it was supposed to facilitate. One of Macaulay, what he said was, education should be utilitarian. Now, you can be all altruistic and say, I'm learning for the sake of learning, but that's not what Macaulay wanted. He wanted education to have a purpose. And he said it should be utilitarian. And back then, the East India Company needed clerks. They needed people to sit at a desk, do as they're told, without getting too creative. Sounds familiar, does it not? So this brings us to the first myth I'd like to disprove, the almighty syllabus. So I have a confession to make. I'm not good with mathematics. I'm not. I had a lot of friends who are unfortunately good with mathematics. But then in mathematics, every class I sat through, we had teachers who came and told us, you're going to need this in your real life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you calculus. I had no idea which aspect of my real life required integration and differentiation. So, but that's the thing. I studied integration, differentiation in school, in college, and I did not know the practical use of it until 1 month ago when I was researching for this one talk. So as I went to the holy place of all answers, Google, and I was trying to figure out the practical use of differentiation. All I had to do was type in what is the practical, and the first autofill was, what is the practical use of differentiation? This introduced me to two frightening realities. One, Google is getting exceedingly well at reading my mind. And two, this is a question a lot of people ask. Why am I studying differentiation? Why am I studying integration? What is the point of this? So, but that's the thing with our syllabus. Unless a teacher tells you, you are not going to find out what it's used for. Ask any student whether they fully understand why they are studying what they're studying. They really don't know. In most of them, at least, unless, like I said. And this is a day and age when you can access anything on the internet, as clearly shown. But then, yes, don't get me wrong. I do believe that memorizing a few things is important, because that's what our education system is about, right? Memorizing. It's not about understanding. It's about how good you remember things. Well, then that has its disadvantage as well. Just memorizing and not fully understanding. So for this, I have to tell you a bit about my college. So I teach in an engineering college. And engineering is a 4-year undergraduate degree. So there's a rule in our college which goes that if you're caught using your cell phone, if a student is caught using their cell phone within the college building, it'll be confiscated from them and kept in the principal's office, and it'll only be handed out to them when they graduate. Pretty harsh, I know. But not that it frequently happens, but it's a rule. So I went to Wikipedia and got this list of Android updates, Android, the popular mobile phone OS. So let me give a hypothetical scenario. Let's assume in 2009, a student started his or her engineering degree. And in 2009, the Android version 1.6 was released, as highlighted. So unfortunately, this person got their mobile phone caught in class, because to all students out there, we teachers know you're using your mobile the moment we turn our backs to the class. It's something we know. So it'll be kept in the principal's office until 2013 and Android KitKat is out, version 4.4. Now, if you are teaching your students based on a syllabus which is all about retention of information without fully appreciating, understanding, and absorbing it, they're going to be as outdated as that mobile phone sitting in the principal's office. Thank you. So, and also having a syllabus-based kind of thing revolving around that has its issues as well. What is being taught? Which brings us to our second myth, art is not important. So again, let me set up a hypothetical scenario. Let's go back thousands of years, back to the era of Stone Age, of cavemen. And two mothers are meeting. Two Stone Age mothers are meeting, and they're talking about the subject which most mothers are interested in, their children. So one mother asks the other, so what does your son do? Oh, my son, he's a hunter, and he usually hunts deer, but this month he got a promotion. Next month onwards, he's going to start hunting elephant. I know, I'm such a proud mother. So what does your son do? Oh, my son, he's completely useless. He says he wants to be an artist. Does nothing but sit in the cave and draw on the walls all day. I mean, it's not like this is going to become a defining moment in human civilization. It's a complete waste of time. So, whether we like to appreciate it or not, art is an integral part of what makes us human. But remember what I told you, what Macaulay said, education should be utilitarian. And the use which the East India Company had of the Indians back then was similar to the use which they had back in England. The Industrial Revolution was in full swing. They needed people in factories, which is why the syllabus and the education system got focused on what is known as the STEM subjects. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Everything else got pushed to the side. I mean, they didn't require a poet running around in factories. So because of this, we have a clear hierarchy when it comes to education. It starts with STEM, followed closely in second by humanities. Those are your languages, history, geography, economics, etc. And way in the bottom, you have art. Now, art is a field which we don't teach our kids because we don't fully understand it. We don't fully understand creativity. Now, I'd like to consider myself an artist. A lot of real artists out there are cringing right now. But I'd like to consider myself an artist, and from my experience, I can tell you what creativity is. It's not about what most people think it is. It's not about chaos and instability and drugs. Well, I asked about the drugs. Apparently, it's illegal. So it's about making a mistake and then learning from it and making another mistake and then learning from that and so on and so forth until maybe if you get it right. Without any formal education in arts, the kids won't have anywhere to go. In fact, I have a student who, in order to impress a girl in his class, learned a song in the shortest duration of time. That is how creative kids can get, depending on rewards, of course. So, but that's the thing. It's like I said, creativity is not an important part in our education system. So kids don't know whether they are creative. They don't know what creativity is. They don't know what they can be creative in. And, of course, they are not allowed to make mistakes in our education system. Brings us to myth number 3, discipline requires punishment. So now, let me tell you about this man, Wendell Johnson. Now, Wendell Johnson was a psychologist, and he conducted, back in 1939 in US, he conducted a study which was later called the monster study. What he did was, he took 22 orphans, and he divided them into 2 groups of 11 each. One group, he gave them positive reinforcement in speech therapy. He gave them compliments, he praised them, and rewarded them for having made effort. The other group, the other 11, he gave them negative reinforcement. He belittled them, he made fun of them. The group which got negative reinforcement not only did not improve on their speech impediments, they started developing new speech impediments, some which lasted their entire lives. Hence the term monster study. So this is the thing. This is how our education system treats our kids. They're not allowed to make a mistake, and therefore they are afraid to. When I walked in here and I asked you a question, how many of you are ready to learn, most of you started squirming in your seats and looking next to the side. As in, like, this was not part of the brochure. What's he talking about? Because you're afraid to make a mistake. Same with my kids. They are afraid to make mistakes. Because I have to go back to the philosophy of Socrates. Socrates was a man who said that we should always question everything, inwardly and outwardly. And for his trouble, he was imprisoned and executed, because authority doesn't like too many questions. Refer East India Company. So Socrates was someone who said that we should always question everything, and I agree. I do not believe that there is such a thing known as a silly question. There are silly intentions, yes, but there is no such thing as a silly question, which brings me back to my original question: what is the point of the education system in India? Again, like I said, I don't know the answer. Maybe I could have helped you come closer to the answer, but now I told you what it doesn't do. It doesn't help our children. In order to change the education system, there's going to be a lot of effort from all of us. Someone else is not going to do it. It's up to us. I know what you're going to say. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of things which you have to put from our side. But isn't that what we expect from our kids? Isn't that what we expect from our kids in an education system which is actively holding them at bay? Because, I don't know about you, I would like to live in a future where I walk into a class and I ask them, so how many of you woke up today morning and decided to learn something new? And instead of 5 hands going up, I'd like to have at least 6 hands going up. Thank you.